They woke before the first rooster, long before Rome itself stirred. The city slept in shadows, but in the slave quarters, tired hands pulled on coarse tunics, preparing for a day of unending labor. Their day began not with dreams, but with duty. They scrubbed mosaics until the stone shone like water, bent knees pressing against cold marble as bristles scraped in endless circles. And as the sun climbed higher, they carried amphorae heavier than themselves. Step after careful step, clay jars full of oil and wine pressing into their shoulders. Welcome to mildly boring history, where stories of the past unfold slowly, gently, and in detail. This is a place for rest as much as it is for learning. Let your mind drift as we step quietly inside a medieval asylum, where each day was the same, yet never without its weight. And so, the story begins at dawn, when the first bell rang across the courtyard. The city of Rome slept, or at least it seemed to, under the dim light of a pre-dawn sky. Its cobbled streets, silent now, would soon awaken with merchants, guards, and citizens. But for a brief moment, the world was hushed. In the small, dark quarters, tucked behind the grand villas and merchant houses, another life stirred. Here, slaves began their day before the sun even thought of climbing over the hills, before the first crow of the rooster, before the city stretched and yawned in its usual bustle. You can imagine the quiet, the cold, rough stone under bare feet, the faint chill lingering from the night. The air smelled of damp earth and straw, faint traces of yesterday's bread and smoke from the fire that had long since died down. Tiny lamps flickered weakly, throwing dancing shadows along walls blackened with soot and age. In these shadows, figures shifted slowly, reluctantly, but with an almost meditative rhythm. Their tunics, coarse and patched, were pulled on carefully, worn sandals laced over calloused feet. Every motion was familiar, every movement repetitive. Yet there was a kind of silent grace in it. Hands rose to the ceiling of the small room, stretching away stiffness and sleep. A quiet murmur passed among them, a prayer, a whisper to the household gods, the lares and penates. These tiny clay figures, tucked into corners and niches, bore witness to the secrets of the servants' hearts. Wishes for safety, for endurance, for the day to pass without injury. Perhaps even for the smallest joys, hidden in the endless rhythm of work. It was an almost sacred act, repeated daily, unnoticed by the masters, yet a private ritual that marked the start of everything. The first task was often the fire. Coal and wood needed tending, the warmth rekindled for cooking, for the bath of the master, for the light that would guide activity through the stone corridors. Fingers, nimble despite calluses, arranged embers and sparked flames. The glow flickered, orange and amber, illuminating the weariness etched into every face. Some sighed, others worked in silence, the sound of shifting ash and the crackle of kindling filling the quiet morning. Soon, water had to be drawn, heavy amphora from the cistern, balanced with precision, carried carefully to avoid spillage. Each step on the uneven stone floors measured not in minutes, but in the weight of the jug, the care in the hold. The chill from the water seeped into fingers, creeping into joints still stiff from sleep. Yet this too became part of the rhythm, a familiar discomfort, a predictable sensation. The mind, focusing on such concrete details, found a strange comfort. Each repetitive motion, each small challenge, created a pattern, a soft cadence that would repeat endlessly, yet reliably. By the first hint of sunlight, The courtyard behind the villa already teemed with subtle motion. Not the rush of the city streets, but a quiet choreography. Slaves carried firewood to the kitchen, swept dust from stone floors, and arranged benches and mats for breakfast. The smell of damp stone and cold wood mixed with the faint scent of bread dough from yesterday's preparation. Some scrubbed the floors with stiff brushes, water splashing, soap foam hissing softly. Others arranged herbs and vegetables brought from the garden, sorting, trimming, organizing. Their movements were methodical, almost hypnotic in their repetition. Even before the masters appeared, a small hierarchy existed here. Older, more experienced slaves guided the younger, demonstrating the subtle tricks learned through years. How to balance a heavy jar, how to keep a tile spotless, how to whisper prayers without attracting notice. Words were few, voices low, almost swallowed by the space itself. Instruction was patient, slow, often repeated many times until every step was memorized, internalized. And when silence fell again, each continued their work alone, yet somehow together in the rhythm, a quiet symphony of labor. Breakfast for the household was prepared in stages. The large hearth glowed, pots rattled, and water hissed as it boiled. Slaves measured portions carefully. A slice of bread here, a cup of wine there, oil drizzled on fruit. Precision was required. Mistakes were noted, corrected silently. Even as the kitchen filled with activity, there was a calm, almost meditative monotony in each task. Kneading dough, stirring porridge, slicing herbs, all repetitive, all grounding, all strangely soothing if one allowed the mind to follow the rhythm rather than resist it. Outside, the city was awakening in muted tones. Carts creaked along distant streets. Dogs barked, and faint voices called from alleyways. Yet in the slave quarters, this world was still filtered, softened, slowed. Shadows lingered long across the stone floors, and the warmth from the fire made the cold more bearable. Eyes, though weary, observed carefully, checking the placement of vessels, the balance of jars, the neatness of mats. Every movement was measured, every breath deliberate. As the morning progressed, tasks multiplied. Some slaves began cleaning mosaics and polishing bronze vessels. Tiles were scrubbed until they reflected candlelight as if they contained their own glow. Every circle of the brush, every repetitive stroke became almost hypnotic. One could imagine a rhythm forming, a pulse to the day. Sweep, scrub, carry, lift, polish, repeat. The mind, attendant to such simple motions, began to settle, to drift, to find a subtle calm. Even exhaustion became a companion in this pattern, familiar and strangely comforting. By mid-morning, the first interactions with the masters occurred. Orders were given, often short, sometimes abrupt. Slaves responded with nods, gestures, measured obedience. Communication was functional, almost ritualized, respectful, subdued, precise. Every word, every pause, every glance was a part of the choreography. It was an unspoken understanding that the day would continue as it had, unchanging in its fundamentals, yet always demanding attention and care. This early rhythm, repetitive, exacting, and strangely beautiful, set the tone for the hours to come. Work was never ending, yet the patterns allowed the mind to wander gently. Thoughts of family, dreams, hopes, and fears could slip in, cradled by the consistency of the labor. Even the smallest tasks, sweeping ashes, arranging bowls, tightening ropes, offered a quiet satisfaction when done well. And in these moments, despite hardship, a calm. By the time the sun lifted fully above the horizon, the villa was awake in earnest. Slaves moved through corridors, kitchens, courtyards, and storerooms, performing their duties with the unvarying rhythm that defined their lives. Each motion, each repetition, each small detail became part of a larger pattern, a soft, soothing cadence that measured time, not in hours or minutes, but in the cycle of care, preparation, and quiet observation. And so dawn faded into morning, bringing the first gentle stirrings of life beyond the quarters. But within these walls, the rhythm endured. The early hours, spent in whispered prayers, flickering candlelight, and meditative motion, set the stage for the surprising calm of a Roman slave's day. It was a life measured by repetition, grounded in tasks both mundane and precise, and through it all, a strangely soothing order emerged, one that could lull even the most restless mind into a gentle, reflective rhythm. As the villa's morning rhythm settled, the attention of many slaves turned toward the kitchen, the heart of the household's daily sustenance. Here, tasks unfolded with a measured precision, each motion deliberate, each gesture rehearsed countless times before. The kitchen was a room both warm and dim, filled with the faint aroma of bread, herbs, and embers from a fire that never truly went out. Shadows clung to the corners, curling along walls darkened by soot and age, creating small pockets of quiet between the bustle. Water was fetched from the cistern, poured into cauldrons, stirred and heated. Fingers, experienced and steady, measured quantities of flour, salt, and oil, creating the dough that would sustain the household through the day. Kneading was slow, rhythmic, almost hypnotic. Hands pressed, folded, stretched, and turned the dough with practiced repetition, feeling its texture change beneath calloused palms. The soft elasticity of the bread was a constant in a life otherwise filled with unpredictable demands. Each fold of dough mirrored the cycles of the day, steady, reassuring, inevitable. Some slaves tended to the fires, adding logs and adjusting embers so that pots would not boil over, that bread would bake evenly, that water would be at the correct temperature. The crackle and hiss of flames became part of the soundscape, a subtle cadence against which other tasks moved. The warmth of the fire seeped into the cold stone floor and the damp walls, lending comfort to bodies still awakening from the night. It was a warmth not merely physical, but psychological, a reminder of the structured rhythm upon which their day was built. The preparation of food required coordination. Herbs were chopped with precision, onions peeled, vegetables scrubbed and arranged. Some slaves ground grains using heavy stone mills, the repetitive grinding a soothing, continuous motion. The millstones turned in their sockets, each rotation releasing a gentle, consistent sound. It was monotonous yet meditative, the repetition embedding a quiet, almost trance-like rhythm into the labor. Each movement, each measured step contributed to a larger orchestration that sustained the household. Bread, central to every meal, demanded particular attention. Slaves shaped loaves with care, ensuring uniformity, a neatness that pleased the eyes of masters accustomed to order and aesthetic. Small imperfections were smoothed out, uneven surfaces pressed flat, edges rounded with practiced fingers. These small acts, repeated hundreds of times across weeks and months, became a silent meditation, a subtle comfort amidst the endless toil. Each loaf reflected both necessity and artistry, born of repetition, discipline, and unremarkable persistence. Some slaves were responsible for more delicate tasks, rolling pastry, preparing sauces, preserving fruits, or carefully measuring out spices. Every pinch, every stir, every fold was deliberate. They moved slowly, methodically, not rushed, because the rhythm itself was a guiding principle. A misplaced herb or an overcooked sauce could cause subtle displeasure. Yet the monotony of repetition allowed the mind to find solace in the expected flow of work. Even mistakes became part of the cycle, noticed, corrected, and folded seamlessly back into the sequence of labor. Meanwhile, the scent of bread baking in the hearth began to fill the air. Smoke curled gently from the oven, mingling with the earthy aroma of wet stone and the faint tang of fire-touched metal. Slaves carefully monitored temperatures, sliding long wooden paddles beneath the loaves, turning them, ensuring even browning. The sound of crusts cracking as hot dough met the cool air became part of the daily soundtrack, a gentle percussion in a symphony of ordinary acts. The smell, the warmth, the repetitive motions, all combined to form a quiet, grounding rhythm. By mid-morning, the kitchen was alive with motion, but calm in its own way. Each slave knew their space, their role, their rhythm. Some carried pots and bowls to different parts of the villa, delivering food to masters and guests. Others cleaned utensils, scrubbing bronze and clay vessels until they gleamed softly in the firelight. The repetitive nature of this labor created a strange harmony. Every movement was predictable, every sound familiar, and this predictability brought a sense of stability. In this structured environment, even exhaustion became soothing, a known companion in a known pattern. Meals themselves followed precise routines. The first meal of the day might include bread, olives, and porridge, prepared and laid out with care. Masters arrived at the table, but their presence did not disturb the underlying rhythm. Slaves moved around them like a calm current, serving, clearing, replenishing, all in silent coordination. Each plate, each cup, each loaf returned to its proper place before the next action began. The repetitive choreography of service maintained a quiet meditation, a slow-motion dance that seemed to stretch time into gentle continuity. In quieter moments, the eyes of the slaves wandered, observing small details unnoticed by the more powerful inhabitants. The texture of the floor beneath bare feet, the pattern of smoke curling from the chimney, the soft gleam of polished bronze reflecting candlelight. Each observation, seemingly trivial, contributed to a deeper understanding of their environment. The monotony of the day allowed the mind to wander safely, drifting through memories, imagining futures, or simply resting in the slow passage of time. The repetitive rhythm of work and observation combined to form a lullaby of labor. Even tasks like sweeping the floors, dusting surfaces, or organizing storage rooms became exercises in calm observation. Brushes moved in gentle arcs, dust stirred briefly and settled quietly, and the hands became a vehicle for meditation. Attention to such small details required focus, but also created space for reflection. Slaves learned to find subtle pleasure in the act of cleaning itself, in the predictable movements, in the tiny incremental progress. Every stroke of the broom, every shift of a bowl, Every careful alignment of a jar contributed to a slow, soothing cadence that carried them into the deeper flow of the day. And as the sun climbed higher, casting slanted rays through small windows, the kitchen settled into a soft, continuous hum. The repetitive motions, kneading, stirring, chopping, polishing, fetching, had formed a steady rhythm. It was an almost musical cycle, a quiet, undramatic pattern that shaped both the day and the minds of those who performed it. In these simple, repetitive acts, there was a surprising serenity. The world beyond the villa might be noisy, chaotic, and unpredictable, but inside, there was a consistent order. And this order, found in the hum of labor and the subtle textures of daily life, could lull even the most restless mind toward a quiet, reflective calm. As the morning in the villa continued, some slaves moved beyond the kitchen into the open courtyards and gardens, where the rhythm of labor changed yet remained predictable, soothing, and deliberate. The sun had climbed higher, warming the stone walls and tiling, casting gentle, long shadows across the garden paths. Here, the world was slightly brighter, yet the pace remained calm, measured, and immersive. The gardens were not only ornamental, they were sources of sustenance, medicinal herbs, and fragrant relief. Slaves tended rows of vegetables, bending to pull weeds, trim overgrowth, and ensure that each plant received enough sunlight and water. Hands moved slowly over leaves, tracing their veins, feeling the slight resistance of the soil beneath fingernails, noticing the subtle differences between herbs. Each plant had its place, and every motion had a rhythm. Watering, pruning, turning soil, checking roots, a continuous, hypnotic loop that connected body and mind in a meditative pattern. Courtyards presented a slightly different set of duties. Stones were swept clean of dust, leaves, or droppings. Broken tiles or worn edges of paths were quietly repaired. The echo of footsteps on gravel or stone became a gentle metronome, a consistent sound against which other tasks played out. Baskets of tools, carefully organized and returned after use, reinforced the sense of order. Each object had its place, and that placement reinforced the rhythm of the day, creating subtle comfort and reassurance in predictability. Water tasks extended outdoors as well. Slaves carry pails from cisterns or wells, ensuring that gardens, animals, and fountains received their daily sustenance. The weight of the pail, the coolness of water against the skin, and the careful balance required to avoid spills all contributed to the tactile, immersive experience of labor. Every pour, every step, every splash was part of the gentle continuity of life in the villa. Some slaves tended the animals, goats, chickens, perhaps a horse or two. Feeding, brushing, and collecting eggs were slow, repetitive motions. The cluck of hens, the bleat of goats, and the occasional whinny of a horse became a quiet background, comforting in their familiarity. The routine of animal care mirrored that of the kitchen. Each day followed the last, each task repeated with small variations, creating a continuous, soothing cadence. The texture of feathers, the warmth of wool, the coolness of a watering trough, all of it engaged the senses, grounding the mind in tactile reality, while the repetitive tasks encouraged calm focus. Paths through the gardens often led to shaded areas, where herbs and flowers were used for culinary, medicinal, and aromatic purposes. Slaves plucked leaves carefully, noting the color, texture, and fragrance. They measured, chopped, and prepared these herbs in small, repetitive actions, sometimes returning to the kitchen to contribute their carefully gathered bounty. This connection between garden and kitchen reinforced the continuity of the day's work, a chain of tasks whose rhythm became meditative. The courtyards, gardens, and outdoor areas were also places of observation. Slaves noted the weather, the shifting sunlight, the slow dance of shadows across stone. Birds moved through the air. Insects hummed in patterns too small to fully perceive, but consistently present. The repetition of noticing, checking the soil, observing plants, adjusting irrigation, allowed the mind to settle, anticipating the same small changes each day, and finding calm in the predictability of nature. Beyond these tasks, some slaves were responsible for the upkeep of the villa's walls, fences, and hedges. Clipping, repairing, and maintaining boundaries took time and patience. The repetitive motions, shears cutting leaves, hammering small wooden posts, smoothing earth along walls, created gentle, almost imperceptible rhythms. Even the sound of tools striking stone or wood blended into the daily meditative soundscape, a natural percussion accompanying slow, purposeful movement. In courtyards and gardens, the concept of order extended beyond labor. Paths were swept in slow arcs. Fountains were adjusted to ensure gentle flow. Flower beds were lined neatly, and statues or stone features were dusted or repaired. These motions were small but deliberate, repeated each day to maintain a sense of harmony. The repetition itself became a form of mental stabilization, a predictable loop in a world that could otherwise be chaotic. While some tasks were physically demanding, others required attention to minute detail. Arranging small stones along paths, checking the alignment of garden beds, and observing the health of each plant demanded patience. Each action, though seemingly insignificant, contributed to the larger sense of order and continuity. Slaves often found solace in this, the predictable smallness of tasks, allowing the mind to wander, imagine, and rest within the parameters of structured labor. By midday, the villa's outdoor rhythm merged with the kitchen indoors. Slaves returned with harvested herbs, vegetables, and other provisions, flowing back into the coordinated motions of food preparation. The continuity of indoor and outdoor work created a cycle: planting, tending, harvesting, preparing, and serving. Each step repeated the last, reinforcing the hypnotic predictability of the day. Through repetition, through touch, sight, and sound, the rhythm of life offered a meditative, subtle lullaby. Even simple tasks like carrying small baskets, moving water, or adjusting the positioning of tools and supplies became opportunities to engage fully with the tactile and auditory environment. The clink of clay pots, the soft thud of baskets on stone floors, the gentle swish of water against wooden troughs, all became part of the immersive rhythm that occupied the minds of those performing these labors. By late afternoon, the villa and its gardens bore the imprint of the day's continuous steady rhythm. Each plant had been touched, each stone accounted for, each task performed with deliberate care. The air carried the lingering sense of herbs, baked bread, and sun-warmed stone. Sounds carried faintly across courtyards, the crackle of a distant hearth, the whisper of leaves, stirred by the gentle wind. In these ordinary details, the slaves' lives followed a surprisingly comforting cycle. Even as shadows lengthened and evening approached, the rhythm continued. Simple actions, carrying water back to cisterns, tending fires outdoors, cleaning tools, offered a continuity that softened the passage of time. The predictability of each day, repeated endlessly with minor variations, created a slow, soothing cadence that guided both body and mind toward a gentle sense of order. In this environment, the simplicity of daily life became its own kind of meditation, a quiet companion to the long Roman afternoons and early evenings. And as the light shifted, softening into dusk, the day's labor concluded with a sense of completeness. Every task performed, every object returned to its place, every plant touched, every meal partially prepared for the evening or the next day, all contributed to a cycle that was quietly reassuring. In this way, even work considered monotonous or burdensome provided a subtle, hypnotic rhythm, lulling the mind into reflection, calm, and eventual rest. As the sun climbs higher, some slaves transition from the courtyards and gardens back into the villa itself. The interior of a Roman home, whether a modest domus or a larger patrician estate, is a world of its own. Here, walls and floors require constant attention. Stone and tile must be cleaned, swept, and smoothed. The repetitive brushing of brooms along mosaic floors, the careful polishing of marble surfaces, and the soft padding of rugs or cloth coverings create a tactile rhythm that occupies the hands and the mind. The air inside the villa carries scents of wax, oil, herbs, and the faint warmth of fires used for cooking or heating. Slaves move deliberately from room to room, arranging furniture, dusting ledges, and checking the alignment of mats or low couches. Each object is placed with care. A clay vase is rotated slightly to catch light in a pleasing manner. Bronze vessels are wiped until they gleam faintly under the warm glow of sunlight filtering through the windows. Laundry forms another aspect of interior labor. Slaves gather garments, soak them in large tubs of water, and rub them against stone or wooden boards. The repetitive sound of water swishing and cloth moving under hands, the gentle squelch of soaked fibers, the rhythmic squeezing of fabric. Each motion contributes to a meditative cadence. As clothes drip and hang on wooden racks or lines, the air takes on a damp, earthy scent, subtle yet familiar, marking the passage of effort through the day. Some slaves engage in minor crafts and repairs, mending torn cloth, weaving baskets, or fixing broken pottery. Each task demands attention, patience, and repetition. The gentle creak of reeds under weaving fingers, the faint scrape of clay against stone, and the soft snap of thread under tension form a quiet auditory background. Each motion, although small, is necessary, and its repetition fosters a predictable, calming environment. Meanwhile, in spaces like kitchens or pantries adjacent to the main rooms, other slaves continue their slow, rhythmic work. They chop herbs, knead dough, or sort grains into storage vessels. The sound of chopping, the soft impact of dough being pressed, the shift of grains within clay jars, all contribute to a constant, gentle aural landscape. These sounds, repeated day after day, become a type of natural metronome, creating an almost hypnotic state for both workers and any observers. Meal preparation is a continuous cycle. Water is carried, fire is tended, and ingredients are mixed in measured portions. The motions are familiar, comforting in their predictability. Slaves might prepare several dishes in stages, washing vegetables, blending herbs, roasting meat or fish, and arranging small portions for later service. Each movement is deliberate, performed in a slow sequence that repeats daily, This repetition, though laborious, contains a meditative quality, a rhythm that encourages the mind to settle. Beyond physical labor, slaves often monitor the condition of the villa's storage areas. Shelves of amphorae containing wine, olive oil, or dry goods are checked for spoilage or insects. Barrels are rotated, jars carefully handled, and provisions accounted for. The hands-on engagement with these objects reinforces a continuous cycle of attention and care. Each object handled gently, each surface cleaned or inspected, each task completed adds to the quiet rhythm of life. Small maintenance tasks, such as polishing bronze lamps, cleaning silver or glassware, and dusting oil lamps, demand precise, repetitive movements. The faint metallic scent of polished bronze mingles with the earthy aroma of herbs and the lingering warmth of sun-heated stone floors. Slaves engage with these objects in a slow, deliberate manner, their motions forming a consistent, almost hypnotic pattern that continues throughout the day. Slaves also attend to decorative details. Wall hangings, small statues, or intricately carved furniture are cleaned, straightened, or adjusted. The subtle act of restoring order in these spaces, aligning a small sculpture, dusting a delicate mosaic, rearranging a table setting, provides a sense of continuity. Each day, the villa is restored to a state of quiet harmony, with every object and surface accounted for, reinforcing a meditative sense of calm. By mid-afternoon, the villa's interior is alive with the quiet persistence of labor. The repetitive, detailed work, cleaning, organizing, repairing, creates an environment where both body and mind settle into rhythm. The repetition of tasks, the sensory engagement of touch, sight, and sound, and the predictable progression of the day foster a gentle sense of temporal continuity. In this environment, the ordinary becomes extraordinary through its meditative, hypnotic effect. Even as sunlight fades and shadows lengthen, the villa's interior retains the soft residue of labor. Floors remain swept, surfaces gleam faintly, fabrics hang orderly, and tools rest in their designated spaces. This meticulous, repeated care, though unnoticed by most, is central to the daily life of Roman slaves. The cycle of predictable, sensory-rich work fosters a calming cadence, a slow and soothing rhythm that guides the day toward evening, preparing both body and mind for the quiet rest that follows. Moop. As the afternoon sun begins to lower, the rhythm of the villa subtly shifts. Shadows stretch across the courtyards, creeping along mosaics and stone floors, marking the slow passage of time. For the slaves, this is a period of continuation and quiet repetition, a time when earlier labors meet the next sequence of necessary work. Some slaves move back outdoors, tending to the gardens or orchards that surround the estate. Rows of herbs, vegetables, and fruit trees require careful attention. Hands glide over leaves, gently plucking weeds, checking for insects, and adjusting the positions of plants in their beds. The repetitive motion of weeding, pruning, and watering creates a steady, hypnotic rhythm. The faint fragrance of herbs, rosemary, thyme, sage, mingles with the earthy scent of freshly turned soil, calming the mind even as labor continues. Meanwhile, other slaves focus on water-related tasks. Large stone basins must be scrubbed, cisterns checked, and vessels carried from wells to kitchens and storage areas. The rhythmic sound of water sloshing in clay jars, the soft splash as it hits stone, and the measured clatter of vessels returning to their shelves provide a gentle auditory backdrop to the day's work. Each motion is deliberate, repeated in the same way countless times before, creating a natural metronome for both workers and those nearby. Inside the villa, more meticulous tasks continue. Slaves inspect and repair textiles, sheets, tunics, drapery. Every stitch is deliberate, each fold precise. The soft scrape of needle through cloth, the gentle tugging of fibers into alignment, and the slow, repeated motions of sewing and mending produce a steady cadence. The tactile engagement of fingers on fabric, the quiet scratching sound of thread on linen, and the faint aroma of washed cloth contribute to a sensory experience that is calming and repetitive. Meal preparation begins again in stages. Breads may be kneaded for the evening, sauces stirred slowly over gentle heat, or wine decanted from amphorae to serve later. The motions are simple but repeated, reinforcing the comforting cycle of the day. The quiet clatter of wooden utensils, the soft bubbling of sauces, and the subtle aroma of roasting vegetables combine to form a warm, enveloping atmosphere. Each act is small yet purposeful, contributing to the villa's continuous functioning and the maintenance of order. Slaves responsible for animal care follow the same meditative rhythm. Chickens, pigs, and goats are tended methodically. Feeds are measured, enclosures swept, water refreshed. The soft sounds of clucking, bleating, and the gentle movement of animals form an auditory pattern, predictable and calming. Repetition governs every step, every gesture, creating a sense of reliability and continuity in the estate's daily life. In the libraries or study spaces, literate slaves may copy scrolls or ink manuscripts. Hands glide over papyrus, forming letters carefully and consistently, each stroke deliberate. The scratch of quill on parchment, the subtle shift of ink, and the repeated shaping of symbols create a quiet, meditative activity. Even these scholarly tasks, though intellectual, follow a rhythm that mirrors the tactile work elsewhere, slow, repetitive, and absorbing. Throughout the villa, the physical spaces themselves respond to attention. Floors are swept once more as dust begins to settle. Lamps are refilled with oil and their wicks trimmed to ensure steady light. Furniture is adjusted for symmetry and balance. Objects are arranged thoughtfully, as if the villa itself participates in the hypnotic pattern of care. Every act of adjustment, cleaning, or inspection reinforces the day's rhythm, maintaining an environment of quiet order. By late afternoon, a sense of completion begins to settle. The villa stands tidy and organized, the gardens neat and nourished, animals fed and watered. The repeated motions of hours of labor leave a calm residue in the air. A subtle, almost imperceptible sense of order restored. For the slaves, this is not the end, but a transition into evening tasks, where the day's work is gently brought to a close, preparing both the estate and its workers for rest. The repetition, the sensory engagement, and the steady rhythm of afternoon chores provide a type of quiet meditation. Hands are busy, the mind is occupied in predictable patterns, and the environment itself, the scents, sounds, and sights, reinforces a calm, almost soporific effect. In this way, the daily life of Roman slaves, though laborious and demanding, holds a soothing cadence, gently guiding both worker and listener toward a sense of calm and eventual rest. As the sun dips lower, spilling amber light across the stone floors and worn mosaics, the villa begins to transition from the steady hum of daytime labor to the quieter, slower cadence of evening. The air cools, carrying faint whispers of the garden's herbs and flowers. Slaves move with deliberate calm, aware that the day is drawing toward its gentle conclusion, yet still guided by necessity and routine. Inside the kitchens, fires are tended carefully. The final meals are prepared, roasted meats removed from spits, grains stirred slowly into soft porridges, sauces ladled with measured attention. Each sound, the clatter of a ladle against a clay bowl, the soft hiss of steam rising, blends into a rhythmic pattern, familiar and predictable. The aroma of cooking wafts through the halls, a comforting signal that the day is nearing its close, and that labor, though still present, now moves at a more measured pace. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. Some slaves move quietly through the villa, their work centered on cleaning and arranging. Surfaces are smooth with slow strokes, floors brushed until the dust has settled, vessels aligned neatly for the morning's use. Each action is deliberate, unhurried, and almost meditative. A wooden stool is set in its place with care, a bronze lamp polished until it gleams faintly in the lamplight. Small gestures that carry the same steady rhythm of attention. The house itself becomes a stage for these repeated motions, each act reinforcing the quiet order of the night. Beyond the walls, the gardens receive their final touches. Pathways are swept of fallen leaves, herb plants clipped lightly, and fountains checked so their waters trickle in soft, continuous streams. The sound of water moving over stone drifts into the evening air, soothing in its constancy. Slaves responsible for lighting move methodically from room to room, placing oil lamps in niches, trimming wicks and ensuring gentle, even illumination. Candlelight flickers along the walls, casting dancing shadows across mosaics, wooden beams, and plaster surfaces. The warmth of the glow contrasts with the cooling air, creating a cozy, contained environment. Every action is measured, deliberate, and repeated, a pattern that soothes the mind even as it completes the day's duties. In the private chambers, some slaves assist their masters or family members in their own evening routines. Clothes adjusted, simple massages given to ease the stiffness of the day, hair combed carefully. The repetitive, gentle motions, coupled with the quiet murmur of conversation or instructions, create a soft rhythm. It is a rhythm designed to calm, to prepare both body and mind for rest, and to reinforce the structured passage from day to night. Other slaves may move to quieter tasks, tending to scrolls, counting coins, or reviewing records. Even these tasks, though more solitary, follow a steady, repetitive rhythm. Hands move predictably across objects, eyes scan documents methodically, and the slow turning of pages becomes part of the evening's ambient pattern. There is comfort in these motions, an assurance that even as the day wanes, the work of maintaining order continues seamlessly. As night approaches fully, the villa settles into a deep calm. The scent of evening herbs mixes with the faint smoke of lamps and fires. Shadows lengthen and deepen in corners. The repetitive sounds of small final chores, the closing of shutters, the tap of a broom against stone, the soft murmur of water, create a hypnotic pattern almost musical in its quiet predictability. Each action, each sound, and each scent works together to guide all within the villa toward a sense of rest. Finally, slaves themselves prepare for sleep. Mats are unrolled, simple bedding arranged, and bodies stretched after the long, repetitive movements of the day. The villa, having been tended, cleaned, and ordered, now provides a peaceful environment. The day's labor, marked by rhythm and sensory engagement, gradually fades into quiet. Even the faintest echo of tasks, the creak of wood, the rustle of fabric, the distant murmur of animals, becomes a gentle lullaby. In these evening routines, there is a kind of meditation, Repetition, predictability, and sensory immersion combine to create a soothing atmosphere. The rhythm of life, simple yet structured, mirrors the natural rhythms of breathing and thought. For the Roman slaves, the day ends not with sudden drama, but with gentle continuity, a passage from labor to rest that soothes the body and mind alike. And as night settles fully, the villa becomes a quiet sanctuary, a testament to the enduring, calming cadence of life in ancient Rome. As darkness fully envelops the villa and the surrounding fields, a hushed stillness settles over the landscape. The last remnants of sunlight retreat behind the distant hills, leaving the world bathed in a muted twilight, the sky deepening from amber to soft indigo. Within the stone walls and timbered rooms, life slows but does not stop entirely. For the Roman slaves, the night carries its own set of duties, subtle, quiet, and essential to the household's continued order. Some slaves are tasked with guarding the perimeters. They move with soft, deliberate steps along the walls, lanterns held low, their eyes scanning the darkened garden paths or outer corridors. The occasional sound of the wind rustling through olive trees, the distant hoot of an owl, or the gentle tinkle of a water basin provides a serene auditory backdrop. These movements are slow and steady, a rhythmic patrol that reassures both the household and the mind that the night remains safe and under gentle control. Inside, the central halls are checked one final time. Torches are trimmed, embers stirred in fireplaces to maintain warmth, and flickering candlelight casts long, dancing shadows along the mosaic floors. The glow is soft, golden, and constant, providing just enough illumination for last-minute tasks. Furniture is adjusted, pottery replaced, and floors swept to remove the faint dust that collects even in these quiet hours. The motions are repeated with measured care, a series of gestures that embody both diligence and an almost meditative calm. In kitchens and storage rooms, some slaves prepare for the following day. Ingredients are portioned, containers sealed, and utensils arranged with careful attention. The faint smells of dried herbs, cured meats, and grains mingle in the cool night air. These tasks, though solitary, are executed with the same rhythmic precision as the daytime chores, creating a sense of continuity, stability, and gentle monotony that is oddly soothing. Elsewhere, animals are attended once more. Horses are led into stalls, fed and brushed. Chickens are settled for the night, and dogs lie quietly, awaiting their rest. Each movement, each sound, each gentle interaction forms part of a continuous, soft pattern, the pulse of the household in the darkness. The repetitive nature of these activities mirrors the steady flow of life, guiding both slaves and observers into a slower, more tranquil mental state. Some slaves move to quieter, more introspective tasks during the night. Scrolls may be reviewed, notes recorded, or small fires tended to ensure they burn evenly through the hours. The soft rustle of parchment, the faint crackle of fire, and the whisper of clothing against stone create a tapestry of gentle sensory input. These nocturnal routines, though less visible, are just as vital to the villa's order, embodying a rhythm that mirrors the body's own transition toward rest. In the chambers themselves, slaves assist family members in minor comforts, adjusting bedding, offering a warm drink, or ensuring the night's light is sufficient but not intrusive. Every gesture is small, repetitive, and deliberate, a ritual of care that reinforces calm and predictability. The villa becomes a sanctuary, where every movement, however subtle, contributes to a quiet harmony, a soft orchestration of human presence in the darkness. For those who rest, the sounds of night are constant but gentle. The occasional stir of an animal, the distant clatter of a servant adjusting a tool, the whisper of wind through trees. Even these tiny disruptions are rhythmic, familiar, and soothing. The repetition of action and sound throughout the villa produces a hypnotic quality, allowing both body and mind to relax fully. Slaves, having completed their final duties, gradually surrender to sleep in mats, straw bedding, or modest rooms, their breaths steady, bodies stretched and relaxed after the measured exertions of the day and night. Through these nocturnal tasks, a unique harmony emerges. The repetitive movements, the tactile engagement with materials, the soft auditory backdrop, and the warmth of firelight collectively create an environment ideal for reflection and calm. It is a life defined by predictable patterns, where each day blends seamlessly into the next. The quiet diligence of the Roman slaves at night exemplifies a slower rhythm of existence, one that, while demanding, also nurtures restfulness and an enduring sense of order. And so, as the villa finally settles into absolute darkness, the last lamps flicker low, casting gentle shadows that stretch across the walls and floors. The night carries with it a sense of completion, a reassurance that all is in place. The world outside remains calm and still, while inside, the echoes of movement, care, and routine continue to lull every soul toward the tranquility of sleep. In this balance between labor and rest, between repetition and quietude, the Roman household finds its serene heartbeat, a testament to the subtle, soothing cadence of daily life under ancient skies. Fires are stirred in hearths to release the last hints of warmth and to prepare for cooking. The gentle crackle and occasional pop of logs is the first sound of life, a whispering signal that the household will soon awaken. In the kitchens, some slaves gather grain, herbs, and water, quietly tending to the preparation of the first meals. Porridge, bread dough, and simple broths are measured and arranged with care. The motion of stirring, sifting, and kneading is slow, methodical, and comforting. Each gesture is repeated, creating a rhythmic flow that mirrors the gradual lightening of the sky outside. The aroma of warm grain, mixed with faint smoke from the hearth, begins to fill the villa, announcing the day's quiet, steady rhythm. Animals are tended with the same calm attentiveness. Horses are groomed and led to their stalls for morning feeding. Chickens stir, scratching gently at the soft earth. Dogs wander quietly, their paws soft on the cool stone. The tactile work, brushing, gathering, filling, and arranging, is repeated across each corner of the estate. Every motion is familiar, predictable, and soothing, providing a gentle structure to the start of the day. Outside, the landscape shifts subtly as the sun rises higher. Morning mist clings to the fields, and the first distant calls of birds break the silence. Slaves who work in gardens and fields move with measured pace, inspecting plants, watering herbs, and clearing pathways. The early light softens the textures of soil and foliage, casting long shadows that stretch across furrows and flower beds. The combination of tactile labor, visual calm, and natural sounds produces a quiet, meditative atmosphere. Inside the villa, other slaves attend to the family, Beds are straightened, clothing laid out, and water basins filled for personal hygiene. The air is still cool, but gradually warmed by the awakening firelight. These preparations, repeated day after day, form a comforting, predictable sequence, a rhythm of life that underpins the household. Even the act of folding linens or arranging vessels carries a quiet, soothing satisfaction, both for the slaves performing them and for those who will benefit from their care. By mid-morning, the villa is fully awake, yet the pace remains deliberate. Slaves move through tasks with a slow, calming efficiency, washing floors, tending gardens, preparing simple meals, and attending to animals. The world outside continues its gentle awakening as well, with faint noises from distant roads and nearby settlements. These sounds are soft, rhythmic, and ultimately reassuring, forming part of the larger cadence of life. Throughout these hours, the Roman slaves exist in a world governed by repetition and predictability. Their days begin and end with familiar patterns, each gesture connected to the next in a steady, harmonious flow. This repetition, combined with sensory engagement, the smell of grain, the warmth of fires, the softness of cloth, creates an immersive, hypnotic rhythm. It is in this rhythm that the household's quiet beauty resides, offering a calm, almost lulling continuity. By the time the family rises to begin their formal daily routines, much of the preliminary work is completed. Meals are ready, rooms are tidy, animals are cared for, and the villa itself is orderly and prepared. The slaves' early morning labors, often unseen by others, are essential to the smooth operation of the estate. The rhythm of work, repetition of tasks, and attention to detail sustain a sense of quiet serenity, echoing the soft, measured flow of life under the Roman sky. And so, the early dawn closes its chapter as the day unfolds fully, revealing the structured yet gentle life of those whose hands ensure the household functions. The Roman slaves' morning tasks exemplify a steady, soothing cadence that combines movement, touch, and sound into a subtle, almost hypnotic pattern. It is a reminder that in the ordinary, repeated actions of daily life, there is a profound calm, an invisible thread of order weaving through every corner of the ancient world. As the sun climbs higher in the sky, the villa and its surrounding lands are bathed in a warm, muted light. Shadows stretch longer in the cooler corners of stone walls and wooden beams, while the sun touches the rooftops, gently highlighting textures in worn tiles and faded plaster. This is the slow, measured pace of the afternoon, when the work of the day continues, but transitions into more varied, intricate tasks. The Roman slaves move with quiet focus, their motions both deliberate and soothing as they maintain the rhythm of the household. Inside the villa, kitchens are alive with the gentle hum of ongoing preparation. Bread bakes slowly in clay ovens, filling the rooms with the comforting scent of rising dough and warmth. Broths simmer in large pots, releasing aromatic wisps of herbs and roasted vegetables. As the sun climbs higher in the sky, the villa and its surrounding lands are bathed in a warm, muted light. Shadows stretch longer in the cooler corners of stone walls and wooden beams, while the sun touches the rooftops, gently highlighting textures in worn tiles and faded plaster. This is the slow, measured pace of the afternoon, when the work of the day continues but transitions into more varied, intricate tasks. The Roman slaves move with quiet focus, their motions both deliberate and soothing as they maintain the rhythm of the household. Inside the villa, kitchens are alive with the gentle hum of ongoing preparation. Bread bakes slowly in clay ovens, filling the rooms with the comforting scent of rising dough and warmth. Broths simmer in large pots, releasing aromatic wisps of herbs and roasted vegetables. Every stir of a wooden spoon, every careful placement of a clay vessel, follows a pattern established over countless mornings and afternoons. The familiarity of these repeated gestures brings a quiet calm, both to those performing the work and to the household as a whole. Elsewhere, slaves attend to the children and family members. They guide young ones through lessons of reading or basic counting, their voices soft and rhythmic. Every word is measured, every movement practiced. There is a gentle repetition in the teaching, a flow that mirrors the cycles of the sun across the villa's walls. These moments, though simple, are steeped in care and consistency. The tactile sensation of smoothing a child's hair, adjusting a sleeve, or guiding a hand over parchment is quietly grounding, providing both comfort and stability in the household's rhythm. Outside, the gardens and fields demand attention under the afternoon sun. Slaves tend to rows of vegetables, herbs, and fruit trees, moving deliberately from plant. Each gesture is small but precise, part of a larger, continuous cycle of care that stretches across the estate. The rustling of leaves, the soft thump of tools against soil, and the distant calls of birds all contribute to a subtle auditory pattern, a gentle background hum of the day. Animal care continues as well. Horses are brushed, hooves cleaned, and feed distributed with quiet attentiveness. Chickens and goats are checked for signs of health, and water troughs are refilled. Even the smallest actions, the flick of a hand, the scrape of a hoof against a stable wall, carry a steady, rhythmic quality. It is in these repetitive motions that the meditative, soothing nature of their labor becomes evident. A gentle cadence woven into the fabric of daily life. Slaves also maintain the villa itself during these hours. Floors are swept, surfaces dusted, and minor repairs attended to. Wooden shutters are adjusted to temper the sunlight, and clay vessels are carefully rearranged to prevent breakage. Each task is executed with quiet precision, creating a predictable and calming sequence of motion. The afternoon, thus, becomes a blend of sensory engagement, subtle movement, and the soft rhythm of repetitive work, elements that together generate a tranquil atmosphere, even amid labor. Food preparation for the evening begins in parallel with the ongoing midday activities. Herbs are crushed and measured, vegetables chopped, and grains sorted. The aromas build slowly, mingling with the warmth of the sunlit villa and the faint residual sense of morning fires. These smells, repetitive yet slightly varied, create a gentle layering that engages the senses without startling them. A sensory pattern that contributes to a meditative calm. Across the estate, the flow of activity, inside and outside, follows an invisible rhythm. Tasks are repeated, habits maintained, and order preserved. The slave's attentiveness to small details ensures the household remains harmonious, a structured microcosm of life where every motion, every sound, and every scent contributes to a subtle symphony of calm. As the sun begins its descent toward the west, the afternoon gradually softens. Shadows lengthen further. Colors deepen into richer, muted tones, and the day moves toward its slower, reflective hours. The predictable rhythm of work, touch, and observation, so characteristic of the slave's daily existence, continues to create an atmosphere that is quietly hypnotic. It is a world where the ordinary, repeated actions of hands and minds become a gentle lull, an understated pattern that carries the senses through the long Roman afternoon. And so, the afternoon ends with a sense of continuity. Each task completed, each gentle gesture repeated, ensures the household moves steadily into the later hours. The day, though filled with work, is composed of small, measured motions, each contributing to a larger, immersive rhythm that soothes and reassures. It is in this slow, persistent cadence that the Roman slaves' lives reveal their surprisingly calming essence, a quiet meditation in movement, touch, and sound. As the sun dips lower toward the horizon, the villa and its surrounding lands are painted in warm, fading hues. Shadows lengthen, and the golden light softens to a muted amber that brushes gently against stone walls and wooden beams. The air cools, carrying faint traces of dust, herbs, and the lingering warmth of the day's labor. Evening arrives quietly, with the rhythm of the household naturally winding down, a gentle transition from activity to rest. Inside, fires are stoked low in hearths, their flickering glow casting dancing shadows across the walls. The day's meals are prepared and served, often in simple, measured portions, emphasizing warmth and sustenance over grandeur. Slaves move with deliberate care, attending to the needs of the household. The sound of soft footsteps across the stone floors, the clink of clay cups, and the gentle scraping of utensils becomes a comforting auditory pattern, echoing through the familiar spaces of the villa. Outside, the gardens and fields settle into silence. The work of tending plants and animals ceases, and a gentle stillness envelops the land. Chickens roost quietly, goats lie down, and horses stand calmly, their breath visible in the cool evening air. The subtle rustle of leaves in the breeze and the distant call of night birds provide a soothing, natural soundtrack. The predictable cycle of the day, from the first light to this tranquil evening, reinforces a sense of order and calm, a rhythm that the slaves have internalized through months and years of repetition. In private quarters, slaves attend to minor preparations for the night. Clay vessels are cleaned, linens adjusted, and fires carefully managed to maintain warmth without excessive smoke. Every motion is gentle, deliberate, and unhurried. The tactile gestures of sweeping, folding, and press, and organizing create a meditative sequence, allowing both body and mind to slow. Even the simple act of arranging objects on a shelf or smoothing a cloth becomes a ritual of calm, an echo of the repetitive work that has defined the day. Children are guided to their sleeping spaces, comforted with soft tones and gentle touches. Their bedtime routines mirror the slave's own rituals, predictable, soothing, and deliberate. By engaging in these small, caring actions, the household reinforces a sense of security and continuity. The repetitive, calm motions, adjusting a pillow, brushing hair, recounting a simple story, help prepare young minds for sleep, just as the steady rhythm of the villa guides the adults and slaves toward rest. As night deepens, the villa itself becomes quieter. Only the occasional crackle of the dying fire, the soft shuffle of a footstep, or the distant murmur of water from a fountain breaks the stillness. The shadows in the corners grow longer, blending into the soft darkness. In this gentle quiet, there is a sense of fulfillment, the day's labors completed, the household in balance, and the steady pulse of life within the walls and surrounding lands slowly easing into slumber. Reflecting on the day, one notices how much of the rhythm was defined not by grand events, but by countless small actions. Each task, stirring a pot, brushing a horse, arranging herbs, guiding a child, carries its own calm repetition. The ordinary, unremarkable details of life, performed day after day, reveal an unexpected serenity. For the Roman slaves, life was a tapestry woven from these small, deliberate threads, each one contributing to the overall balance and quiet of the household. And now, as darkness fully settles, the villa rests beneath a star-filled sky. The air is still, and the world outside is hushed, save for distant nocturnal sounds. In this final part of the day, the steady, repetitive patterns of labor, touch, and sound merge into a meditative calm. The slaves' lives, so often overlooked in history, carry a surprising tranquility, a gentle, hypnotic rhythm that mirrors the slow passage of time and the natural cycles of day into night. Tonight, as we close our story, you can let these patterns guide your own senses. Imagine the warmth of the villa, the gentle flicker of candlelight, the soft sounds of routine, and the calm presence of hands and hearts moving in quiet, steady harmony. The day is complete. The tasks are done. The rhythm slows. And now, under the soft shadow of history, it is time to rest.